Now with the panel, so what do Democrats do? Nira, the question I addressed to Senator Sanders and to Senator Schumer, and they both essentially have the same position. They will work with him where they agree. There are Democrats that think that's a mistake. Where do you come down on this?
Look, I think people were willing to give the benefit of the doubt, but I think the reality is in just this week when you see Jeff Sessions, Mike Flynn, and Steve Bannon, there is a view that the president has to reach out after a divisive race, and we haven't seen much of that. I think Democrats are actually, many Democrats, many progressives, are deeply worried that we're going to see a divisive presidency instead of a divisive.
Do you count the tweet about Schumer this morning? I mean, that's say what you want. That's outreach.
You know what I would love is a tweet that said that people should really stop hate crimes and people should stop swastikas and stop bullying kids. People can talk about the political process all they want, but there are a lot of people who are worried because of they feel bullied, and the President of the United States has yet to really use his Twitter account to address that challenge.
I couldn't agree with that more, and I've been advocating that Donald Trump needs to give a speech. He needs to address the whole nation and talk about, look, I'm a loose cannon sometimes. I say things that, I don't really mean, I don't really feel, but make it a serious and sincere, not if it doesn't have to be an apology necessarily, but just say, look, this is not who I am. This is what I truly intend to do. But he's got to address it face on, and it would change things.
Costa, you know him well. How likely is he to do something like that?
Most important relationship in Washington is between Schumer and Trump. These are two brash New Yorkers. You didn't see Senator Schumer drawing a big line in the sand between these two men. I think what you got to watch is how does Ryan handle it if Trump starts working with Democrats. Most important interview this week was Bannon to the Hollywood Reporter. He dangled out there $1 trillion in infrastructure. We'll see how that actually develops.
Right.
But you're going to see Trump. He's not driven by an ideological compass. He could start to bait Democrats with a lot of infrastructure spending, see how they respond, maybe try to break apart their party.
But I want to talk about who's going to run the party, and I found this fascinating. President Obama did an interview with David Remnick sort of through the final days of the campaign and then after. And Tom Friedman, the president said this: I think that if Hillary Clinton had won the election, then I'd just turn over the keys. I think now I have some responsibility to at least offer my counsel to those who will continue to be elected officials about how the DNC can help rebuild, how state parties and progressive organizations can work together. In other words, he's saying, okay, I'll lead the party. How about that? When was the last time we had an ex-president willing to do that?
I think Democrats could do a lot worse than having Barack Obama lead their party. But I think it's not just Chuck who leads, it's what they lead on. And I think it's very, very important that Democrats not just be about redistribution. They have to be about growing the pie. They have to be for entrepreneurship. I watched the Democratic convention. They had women, they had blacks, they had gays, they had transgender. They even had a dwarf who was really charming, actually talked about his relationship with Hillary Clinton. There's one thing they didn't have: an entrepreneur. Somebody who was a risk taker. Somebody who says, I'm here to grow the pie, not just to redistribute.
What about Tim Ryan in the House?
Well, I have to say, I find it fascinating because he is challenging Tim Ryan. Let me describe him and then let you finish your point. Democratic congressman from Youngstown, Ohio, essentially the heir apparent to the Jim Trafficant days. He wants to challenge Nancy Pelosi. He probably will lose, but he will be able to probably make himself a very competent candidate for governor of Ohio in 2018. But this is a fight inside the party of what to be.
I mean, we're asking, why is President Obama prepared to be the leader on the sidelines? It's because a whole generation of Democratic leadership doesn't have the political capital because they haven't had many opportunities to actually become leaders. This is a microcosm of what's happening in the Democratic Party. Can a person like Ryan actually get a shot in this post-Obama era?
Nira?
Look, I think that the party needs all voies. I think it's great.
Does it need new voices? Does it need fresher voices than Schumer and Pelosi?
I mean, look at the reality. Senator Sanders, he's been there for a long time. He's giving an important voice in the leadership as well as a whole array of diverse voices. I think this is the time to have a debate about the future of the Democratic Party. Nancy Pelosi has been a person who's been able to hold Democrats together, but it's an important debate for us to have.
But this race could end up being decided on what you just mentioned, identity politics in the House, and if the Democrats become too associated with identity politics.
I think everybody recognizes that we need a stronger reform message, both about our politics and about our economy. And I think, the message of this election is that people are angry, they feel left out of the process, and Democrats have to give a voice to that.
Chuck, technology and globalization are upsetting the two things that anchor people in the world: their community and their workplace. Okay, and it's happening at the same time.
Diversification.
People go to the grocery store, they hear being spoken to in a different language, they see people dress radically differently, fairly quickly. They go into the bathroom and there's a person of another gender. They go to work and there's a robot now studying their job next to them. And all those things fast and at once have really, I think, destabilized a lot of people, and I understand that.
Well, one quick note on Tim Ryan. I think his gifts might be better used right now if he could just teach all of us how to meditate. You know, he's strong. But on the issue that that Tom was addressing, I think one of the big elements here in this sort of sense of disenfranchisement is the loss of identity, and this is what's driving these nationalist movements everywhere in Europe as well as here. And no one has actually really spoken to that. I mean, yes, we acknowledge there are all these languages, which I sort of love, and like the diversity of our population, I find appealing, and we enjoy that here in Washington. But the sense of loss of who we are, our national identity is what's not being discussed in terms that people can relate to. You got to identify it. You got to say it, and Democrats just don't do that. Instead, they just collect all the various identities that they can, rather than talk about the one that unites us all.
I'm going to pause here. Homeless in their own country. Who wrote that? We'll be back in Endgame in just 45 seconds. And why did Donald Trump